It was meant to be a simple evening, dinner at our favorite restaurant, surrounded by laughter and familiar faces. My husband, Daniel, had just come home from a long business trip, and I thought reuniting him with our friends would help bridge the quiet distance that had formed between us. What I hadn't anticipated was Ryan's arrival. My secret lover. He came uninvited, bold, self-assured, and dangerously impulsive, the very traits that had drawn me to him in the first place. We had sworn to keep our affair hidden, but that night something in him had changed. His eyes burned with jealousy each time Daniel smiled in my direction. I felt the tension growing but forced myself to ignore it, pretending everything was fine. My hands trembled slightly as I lifted my glass, silently hoping the night would pass without incident. Daniel, ever the gracious host, began sharing stories from his trip, laughing and thanking everyone for coming. Ryan, in contrast, sat in silence, his jaw tight, his gaze fixed on me. Then, without warning, Daniel rested his hand gently over mine and said softly, "I missed you more than I ever thought I could." That single gesture shattered Ryan's composure. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping harshly against the floor. "You don't deserve her," he shouted, glaring at Daniel. The room froze. And then, in a moment that seemed to stretch forever, Ryan struck him. The slap echoed through the restaurant, silencing every voice. My heart stopped. Daniel staggered back in shock. I gasped, paralyzed between them. The look on Ryan's face wasn't triumph, it was raw fury tangled with heartbreak. "How long are you going to keep pretending?" he yelled at me. "Tell him the truth." His voice cracked with desperation. Every pair of eyes in the room was on us, our friends, our neighbors, even the waitstaff. My secret, hidden for months, was seconds from being exposed. Daniel turned to me slowly, his expression darkening. "What truth?" he asked, his tone frighteningly calm. I tried to speak, but no sound came out. My lips parted, then closed again. The air felt thick, suffocating. "Tell him you've been with me," Ryan cried. "Tell him what you said about your marriage." Gasps rippled through the room. My stomach dropped as if the floor had disappeared beneath me. Daniel's face turned pale, his jaw tightened as understanding sank in. "Is it true?" he asked quietly. The restrained anger in his voice was worse than any shout. Tears blurred my vision, but I couldn't speak. My silence was answer enough. He inhaled deeply, then looked at Ryan with chilling steadiness. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." What happened next caught everyone off guard. Daniel didn't yell or retaliate. Instead, he calmly pulled out his phone and made a call. Minutes later, 2 security guards entered the restaurant. They escorted Ryan out as he shouted my name, struggling to reach me. Daniel's composure terrified me more than Ryan's rage ever had. He wasn't acting out of emotion, he was in control, deliberate. Once Ryan was gone, Daniel turned to the stunned crowd and said simply, "Dinner's over." Then he walked out, leaving me standing there, humiliated and trembling. I chased after him, pleading for him to listen, but he didn't even glance back. That night, he never came home. The next morning, I found a note on the dining table. Just one short message. "You've made your choice." I hope he was worth it. I read it again and again, my chest tightening until I could barely breathe. I tried calling him, his number was blocked. I called Ryan, no answer. Panic began to take hold. By evening, the news reached me. Ryan had been arrested. Daniel had pressed charges for assault and public defamation. The restaurant's security footage had been handed over to the police. The man who claimed to love me enough to fight for me was now facing prison, and I was left alone, caught between the wreckage of 2 destroyed lives. Days later, I learned Daniel had filed for divorce. He moved his belongings out quietly, never looking back. Everyone in our community knew what had happened. My humiliation became public, whispered about by people who once called me friend. The man who had once loved me beyond reason had turned away completely. And the man I'd betrayed him with had ruined himself trying to prove his love. Looking back, I see how quickly everything crumbled. One slap, one reckless moment, and my world disintegrated. I thought I had control over both men, but in the end, I lost them both. Sometimes, a single act can twist love into shame and truth into punishment. That night, I didn't just lose them. I lost myself.